Pitch Anything, an innovative method for presenting, persuading, and winning the deal, by Oren Klaff. Picture this. A man named Dennis Walter has spent 35 years as an avocado farmer, working under the relentless sun. Now he's ready to retire, but there's a problem. A massive problem. His entire life savings, over $600,000, sits trapped in an escrow account, held hostage by a man who flat out refuses to give it back. Every single day, Dennis watches his money slip further from his grasp. He's desperate. So he calls a man named Oren Klaff. Oren flies to Las Vegas and marches into the office of Donald McGann, the man holding the money. This isn't some polite business meeting. This is a confrontation. McGann is running what turns out to be a massive Ponzi scheme, though Oren doesn't know the full extent yet. He just knows one thing. He has to get that farmer's money back. He doesn't ask nicely. He doesn't negotiate gently. He walks straight past the receptionist, throwing open office doors, demanding to see McGann. Eventually, McGann's son Jim appears, dressed in a sharp Armani suit, calm and arrogant, ready to handle this situation with cold, corporate logic about why the money simply can't be moved. But Oren isn't there to discuss logic. He looks Jim dead in the eye and says, "We want Dennis's $640,000, and we are getting all of it back from you, today, right now." What happens next is a masterclass in psychological power. For 6 straight hours, Oren controls that room, not with threats or violence, but with a deep understanding of how the human mind actually works. He makes this powerful, arrogant man panic, forcing him to frantically call friends, family, anyone he can think of, wiring the money back piece by piece, 10,000 here, 15,000 there, until every last cent is returned. That day, Oren Klaff didn't just save a man's life savings. He demonstrated a secret method. A way of presenting, persuading, and winning that has absolutely nothing to do with being the smartest person in the room or having the most impressive facts and figures. It has everything to do with understanding one simple, profound truth about human beings. That's the secret we're going to uncover today from Oren Klaff's incredible book, Pitch Anything. This isn't just a book about closing business deals. It's a blueprint for commanding attention in any situation. By the time we're done, you'll understand why almost every pitch you've ever heard is fundamentally broken. And you'll learn the framework to make sure your ideas aren't just heard, but wanted, chased, and won. Stay with me, because this is the key to owning the room. Have you ever had a brilliant idea, something you knew deep in your soul was a game changer? You prepared for days, perfected your arguments, laid out all the logical reasons why it was a sure thing. You walked into the room to present it, and you were met with blank stares. Maybe they checked their phone. Maybe they nodded politely and said, "We'll think about it," which is basically the professional version of "no thanks." It's one of the most frustrating experiences in the world. You're making perfect sense, but your message just isn't landing. Why does this happen? Oren Klaff tells us the answer lies deep inside our brains. There's a fundamental disconnect between the way we send a message and the way our audience receives it. When you're crafting your brilliant idea, you're using the most advanced part of your brain, called the neocortex. This is the part that handles logic, reason, language, and complex thought. It's your inner Einstein. But here's the problem. Your message doesn't arrive at the other person's neocortex, not at first. Before it ever reaches their inner Einstein, it has to get past the bouncer at the door. And that bouncer is a much, much older part of the brain. Oren calls it the crocodile brain. This crocodile brain, or croc brain, is the ancient, primitive part of us that's been around for millions of years. It's not smart. It's not logical. It's concerned with one thing and one thing only: survival. It's constantly scanning the world and filtering information through a very simple set of questions. Is it dangerous? Can I ignore it? Is it new and exciting? Think about it. Your neocortex is talking about things like return on investment, market synergy, and long-term strategic advantages. Meanwhile, the croc brain on the other side of the table is thinking, This is complicated. This sounds like work. Is it a threat? No? Okay, then I'm just going to mark it as spam and ignore it. That's the disconnect. You're sending a complex symphony, and the receiver is basically a smoke detector. It only cares if there's a fire. Up to 90% of your carefully crafted message gets discarded before it even has a chance. The croc brain is a cognitive miser. It wants to use as little energy as possible, and if your pitch is too complex, too abstract, or too boring, it won't just ignore it. It will actually perceive it as a threat to its precious mental energy, and it will actively work to shut you down. So if we can't win by being more logical, how do we win? We have to learn to speak the croc brain's language, simple, visual, novel, and non-threatening. And to do that, we have to understand the invisible battle that's happening in every single conversation we have. Oren calls this the battle of the frames. What is a frame? Imagine that you and I are both looking out the same window. I might be focused on the beautiful clouds in the sky. You might be focused on the traffic jam down on the street. We're seeing the same reality but through different frames. A frame is your perspective, your point of view, your lens on the world. It's the context you bring to any social interaction. And here's the crucial rule that governs every meeting, every pitch, every negotiation you'll ever be in. Frames don't blend. They don't merge. They collide. And when they collide, the stronger frame always absorbs the weaker one. Only one frame can dominate the social interaction. The person who controls the frame controls the conversation. Have you ever been pulled over by a police officer? Think about that moment. As those flashing lights appear in your rearview mirror, your logical brain shuts down and your croc brain takes over. Fear, anxiety, you're in survival mode. You roll down your window, ready to deploy your nice guy frame. Officer, I'm usually a good driver. How about a break? But what happens? The officer's frame, what Oren calls the cop frame, is nearly invincible. It's built on authority, power, and social agreement. He doesn't have to explain his power. He doesn't have to argue or persuade. When his frame collides with yours simply crumbles. You are now reacting to him. He is not reacting to you. He owns the frame. That's frame control. This silent battle for frame control happens in every business meeting. When a potential client says, "Thanks for coming in, I only have 15 minutes. That's a power frame. They're setting the terms. They're establishing that their time is more valuable than yours. The typical response is to be deferential. Thank you so much for squeezing me in. And just like that, you've lost the frame collision. You've accepted a low-status position. So how do you win? Oren says you must seize control with a small, playful act of defiance and humor. When the client says, "I only have 15 minutes," you smile and reply, "That's okay, I only have 12. Boom, a frame collision. In that one moment, you've shattered their power frame. You've signaled that you are not a needy salesperson who will do anything for the deal. You are a peer, an equal, and your time is just as valuable. You've taken control. This brings us to a crucial element of frame control: status. You can't control a frame if you're perceived as being low status. And in most business situations, when you walk into someone else's office to ask for something, you automatically start with low status. Think of all the rituals designed to reinforce this: signing in at the reception desk, being told to wait in the lobby, being offered a bottle of water. Oren calls these beta traps. They are subtle social rituals that put you in a subordinate position and keep you there. To win, you must elevate your status. But how? You're not a celebrity or a billionaire. The secret, Oren says, is to create situational status. Think about a world-renowned cardiac surgeon. In the hospital, his global status is immense. He's the alpha. But what happens when that surgeon takes a golf lesson? Out on the driving range, the golf pro is the expert. The pro tells the surgeon what to do, how to stand, how to swing. In that domain, the surgeon's status falls, and the golf pro's rises. The pro has achieved situational status. He's created local star power. You can do the same thing in any pitch. Oren tells a fantastic story about pitching a powerful hedge fund manager named Bill Garr. Bill's office was designed to intimidate. Marble floors, expensive art, photos with celebrities. He made Oren wait, then seated him in a low chair in front of his massive desk, a classic power move. Bill then took a big red apple from a bowl, took one bite, and set it on his desk, paying more attention to the apple than to Oren's pitch. Oren knew he had no status. His frame was being crushed, so what did he do? In a moment of inspiration, he stood up, walked over to Bill's desk, picked up the apple and said, "I hope that isn't how you do deals. In a real deal, everyone needs a piece." He then took a plastic knife, cut the apple in half, took a piece for himself, and put the other half back on Bill's desk. The room went silent. Bill's two junior analysts were stunned, but after a moment, Bill burst out laughing. With one mildly shocking, friendly, and disruptive act, Oren had shattered Bill's power frame, seized high status, and captured his complete attention. He had created local star power. Once you have frame control and high status, you need to know what to do with it. This is where Oren introduces us to the specific types of frames you'll encounter and the counterframes you can use to win. You've already seen the power frame, but you'll also face the analyst frame. This is when your audience gets lost in the technical details, the numbers, the spreadsheets. They go into what Oren calls cold cognition, the logical, analytical mode that kills any emotional momentum in a pitch. The only way to defeat a cold analyst frame is with a hot intrigue frame. You do this by telling a brief, personal story, a story full of risk, danger, and uncertainty. Oren tells his own intrigue story, which he calls the Porterville incident. He was on his company plane when it suddenly surged and then nosedived, dropping 1,000 feet in seconds. Alarms were blaring, and he saw the two pilots in the cockpit physically fighting each other, slapping each other's hands off the controls. And then, he stops the story right there and goes back to his pitch. The audience is hooked. They're no longer thinking about numbers. Their croc brain is screaming, "What happened? Why were the pilots fighting?" He has hijacked their analytical brain and replaced it with pure curiosity. He created an information gap, and the desire to fill that gap is one of the most powerful forces of attention. Then there's the prize frame. This is one of the most powerful mindset shifts in the entire book. Most people walk into a pitch thinking the buyer, the investor, the client, they are the prize. And you have to perform to win them over. Oren says this is completely backward. You are the prize. Your idea, your talent, your company. That is the scarce and valuable thing. Money is just a commodity. It's everywhere. Prizing is the art of reframing the interaction so that the other person is trying to win you over. You do this by making them qualify themselves to you. You ask questions like, "I'm very picky about who I work with. Can you tell me a bit about why you think you'd be a good partner for us?" It sounds audacious, but it completely flips the power dynamic. It signals that you are not needy, you have options. And it taps into a fundamental human behavior. We want what we cannot have, and we chase that which moves away from us. Oren learned this lesson in the most unexpected place, an animal shelter. He walked in feeling like a hero, ready to rescue a dog. He was the prize. But then the adoption counselor started grilling him. "What kind of home do you have? What's your income? Who will take care of the dog?" Suddenly, his hero frame was shattered. He found himself defending his worthiness to a 23-year-old volunteer. He became the commodity, and the homeless dog became the prize. The shelter had perfectly flipped the frame. So you've learned to control the frame, seize status, and use powerful counterframes. Now it's time to actually pitch your big idea. Oren lays out a strict 20-minute formula. Why only 20 minutes? Because after that, attention doesn't just wander. The brain actually starts forgetting what it just learned. The pitch is divided into 4 phases. Phase 1 is the introduction. You introduce yourself not with a long resume, but with a short track record of your biggest wins. Then you introduce your idea using what he calls the why now frame, explaining the economic, social, and technological forces that have created a brief window of opportunity for your idea to succeed. Phase 2 is where you explain the budget and your secret sauce, your unique competitive advantage. But you do it at a high level, avoiding the temptation to dive into the weeds and trigger the dreaded analyst frame. Phase 3 is offering the deal. You explain clearly and simply what they get. And this leads to the grand finale. Phase 4, stacking frames for a hot cognition. A hot cognition is that gut feeling, that instant sense of, I want this, that happens long before your logical brain has had a chance to analyze anything. It's the feeling that drives almost all of our major decisions. To create this feeling, Oren stacks 4 frames back to back in the final minutes of the pitch. First, the intrigue frame. You tell a compelling story, like the one about the pilots fighting in the cockpit. Second, the prize frame. You re-establish that you are the prize, and they need to earn their way into your deal. Third, the time frame. You introduce a firm deadline, not because you're pressuring them, but because the market window is closing, the train is leaving the station. And fourth, the moral authority frame. You connect your deal to a higher purpose, something bigger than just making money. Think of Mother Teresa. Her frame wasn't built on wealth or power, but on the unshakable moral authority of helping the poor. It was so strong that it could break the powerful doctor frame and convince top surgeons to volunteer their time. When you stack these 4 frames together, you create an overwhelming emotional event. You short-circuit the target's analytical neocortex and get their croc brain to feel a powerful, undeniable sense of wanting. But even with all of these powerful tools, there is one thing that can destroy everything, one fatal flaw that kills more deals than any other, and that is neediness. Oren tells a deeply personal story about a time when he was on the brink of failure. He was trying to raise money for his tech company, but he kept getting rejected. He was down to his last $1,000, with one final pitch to save his company. Desperate, he went to his old mentor, Peter, who diagnosed the problem in seconds. Son, he said, you're going to these meetings, needy. Neediness is a threat signal to the croc brain. It screams weakness and desperation, and it makes people want to run away. When you end a pitch by asking weak, validation-seeking questions like, so, what do you think? You are broadcasting neediness. So what's the antidote? Oren introduces us to a philosophy he calls the Tao of Steve, based on the cool, unflappable personas of actors like Steve McQueen. It has 3 rules. 1. Want nothing. Eliminate your desire. Be outcome independent. 2. Be excellent. Show that you are a master of your craft. 3. Withdraw. At the crucial moment, when they expect you to chase, you pull away. This is the ultimate prize frame. People want what they can't have. By being willing to walk away, you demonstrate ultimate strength and control, and you make them chase you. This entire method was put to the ultimate test in what Oren calls the airport deal. His small firm was up against the Wall Street giant Goldhammer to win a contract to raise $1 billion to redevelop an airport. Goldhammer came in with their massive power frame, a 42-slide PowerPoint presentation filled with cold, hard data. Oren did the opposite. He framed the deal not as a financial transaction, but as a chance to invest in an American legacy. He told a human story, even bringing in a local auto mechanic named Joe Ramirez to talk about how the city had paved over the community football field that used to be on the airport grounds. He created powerful hot cognitions by focusing on history, community, and legacy, a strong moral authority frame. And at the very end, after a stunning 20-minute pitch, he didn't ask for the deal. He withdrew. He told the committee that if they only liked his idea, they should throw him out, because his team would only work with partners who loved it. His small firm won the billion-dollar contract. The strong method, as he calls it, setting the frame, telling the story, revealing the intrigue, offering the prize, and getting a decision, is a complete system for navigating the complex world of human persuasion. It's not about memorizing scripts. It's about understanding the deep psychology that drives us all. It's a game of frames, status, and attention. And by learning the rules, you learn how to win. As we come to the end of our journey through Pitch Anything, it's easy to see this as just a manual for high-stakes business deals. And it definitely is one of the best ever written. But I think the true power of Oren Klaff's work goes much deeper than that. What he's really giving us is a new lens through which to see every single human interaction. Think about it. The battle of frames isn't just happening at a boardroom. It's happening when you negotiate curfew with your parents. It's happening when you and your friends are deciding where to go for dinner. It's happening when you ask someone for a favor, or when you're on a first date. In every one of these situations, there's an unspoken negotiation of status, power, and attention. Someone's frame is setting the context for the interaction. What this book teaches us is that you don't have to passively accept the frame you're given. You have the power to shape the encounter. The idea of situational status is incredibly empowering. It means you don't have to be the richest or most powerful person to command respect. You just have to be the expert in the room, even if that room is just a 5-minute conversation about a topic you know inside and out. You can create local star power. The most profound lesson for me, however, is the concept of eradicating neediness. How often in life do we give away our power because we want something from someone else? We want their approval, their acceptance, their validation. That feeling of needing something from another person is the source of so much anxiety and weakness. The Tao of Steve, wanting nothing, being excellent, and being willing to withdraw, is a philosophy for life, not just for pitching. It's about building a core of self-reliance and confidence so strong that you don't need anyone else's approval to feel valuable. When you operate from that place, people are naturally drawn to you. They want to be part of what you're doing. So how can you start applying these powerful ideas right now in your own life? Let's make it simple. First, just for the next few days, become an observer of frames. Don't try to change anything, just notice. When a teacher sets a deadline, that's a time frame. When a friend insists on going to a certain restaurant, that's a power frame. When you see a commercial that tells a little story, that's an intrigue frame. Just start labeling these invisible forces. Awareness is the first step to mastery. Second, practice a very small, very low-stakes act of playful defiance. The next time someone asks you a question you don't immediately know the answer to, instead of fumbling, just smile and say, "That's a great question. Let me think about that for a second," and take a deliberate pause. You're subtly controlling the timing and pace of the interaction. You're breaking their frame of expecting an instant response. It's a small move, but it will help you feel what it's like to take control. Finally, think about your own intrigue story. What's a time in your life when you faced a real challenge? A time with risk, tension, and uncertainty. It doesn't have to be a plane crash. It could be the time you had to give a speech you were terrified of, or a time you had to lead a team project that was falling apart. Craft that story. Practice telling it. This story isn't just for a pitch. It's a way of communicating your character and resilience to the world. In the end, Pitch Anything isn't about learning tricks to manipulate people. It's about learning to communicate in a way that respects the ancient, powerful, and often irrational parts of our brains. It's about earning attention in a noisy world, not by shouting louder, but by being more intriguing, more valuable, and less needy than anyone else. It's about showing up with such strong conviction in your own worth that others can't help but want to be part of your world. That was our deep dive into Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. We've explored the big ideas today, but let's be honest. A summary is like looking at a picture of a magnificent feast. The real nourishment comes when you sit down and enjoy the meal yourself. The true magic of this book is in the details, the cadence of the stories, and the way Oren's voice guides you through these powerful concepts. This summary is meant to give you a taste and help you decide if this meal is for you. If anything we've discussed has sparked a fire in you, if you feel a desire to truly own the room in your own life, then I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just an exercise in learning. It's an experience that can fundamentally shift how you see yourself and every interaction you have. The link to the book is in the description. And if you found value in our journey today, please take a moment to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration of another game-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's continue to learn and grow together.